The look on my mother's face was pure, unadulterated smugness. She slid the heavy envelope across the mahogany table toward my sister, Tiffany. Tiffany squealed, clapping her hands like a toddler, even though she was 26 years old. My dad sat back, arms crossed, looking at me with that familiar expression of challenge. He was waiting for me to cry. He was waiting for me to beg. He was waiting for me to ask why Tiffany was getting the deed to the brand new 3-bedroom house they had just spent their life savings building, while I, the daughter who worked 2 jobs and paid for her own college, got absolutely nothing. Again. "We just want to make sure Tiffany is secure," my mom said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Since you're so independent, we knew you wouldn't mind." Tiffany grabbed the keys, dangling them in front of my face. "Don't be jealous, sis," she smirked. "Maybe if you were nicer, good things would happen to you." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't even raise my voice. I just reached into my bag and pulled out a single thin blue folder. I placed it on the table and smiled. "I'm not jealous, Tiffany," I said softly. "I'm actually thrilled you love the house, because starting next month, you're going to be my favorite tenant." The room went dead silent, because what my parents forgot, or maybe never bothered to check, was that while they paid for the bricks, wood, and glass, I own the dirt it's standing on, and I was about to initiate the most satisfying eviction process in family history. Before we find out what happened, hit that subscribe button. This is a true story from Reddit, rewritten for your entertainment. To understand why I did this, you have to understand the dynamic in my house. In psychology, they call it the golden child and the scapegoat. In my house, we just called it Tiffany and me. Tiffany was a miracle baby. She was born with health issues that, thankfully, she grew out of. But the coddling never stopped. If Tiffany broke a vase, it was because the vase was placed in a dangerous spot. If I broke a vase, I was clumsy and careless. If Tiffany got a C in school, the teacher was unfair. If I got a B, I wasn't applying myself. By the time we were teenagers, the gap was undeniable. I started working at 16, saving every penny, buying my own car, paying for my own insurance. Tiffany crashed 2 cars that my parents bought her. Instead of punishment, she got a newer model because the old one obviously had brake issues. It was exhausting. But the real twist in this story involves my grandfather, my dad's dad. He was a hard man, a silent man, but he saw everything. He watched how my parents treated us. He watched me mowing his lawn in the summer, while Tiffany sat inside in the air conditioning watching TV. He watched me help him fix his old truck while Tiffany complained that his house smelled like old books. When Grandpa passed away 5 years ago, everyone expected the inheritance to go to my father, and mostly it did. Dad got the stocks, the cash, and the main family home. But there was a plot of land, about 4 acres, sitting right next to the main property, but technically a separate deed. It was beautiful land, near a lake, prime real estate. My parents always talked about building a guest house or a second home there eventually. When the will was read, my parents were so focused on the cash sum that they barely listened to the rest. The executor handed me a separate envelope. Grandpa had left the 4-acre plot to me, explicitly. His will stated, "To my granddaughter, who knows the value of hard work, I leave the land, so she always has ground to stand on." My parents were furious, of course. They tried to bully me into signing it over to them immediately. "We're a family," my dad had yelled. "Property should be managed by the head of the household." "You're too young to own land," my mom had argued. You'll just sell it and waste the money." But I held firm. I was 22 at the time and I knew my rights. Eventually they stopped asking, or so I thought. They just stopped talking about the land altogether. I moved out, got a job in the city about 2 hours away, and maintained what I call low contact. I saw them on holidays, I took their passive-aggressive comments, and I went home. Then, about a year ago, I heard through a cousin that my parents were building something. I didn't pay much attention until I came home for Thanksgiving. I drove past the old family property and saw it. Construction crews, foundation poured, framing going up, right on my land. My heart stopped. I drove straight to my parents' house. "What are you building?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, that?" My mom waved a hand dismissively. "We decided to finally build that cottage for Tiffany. She's having a hard time finding an apartment she likes, and we want her close by." "On the lake plot?" I asked. "Yes, it's the best view," my dad grunted, not looking up from the TV. I stood there, stunned. They hadn't asked me. They hadn't even told me. They just assumed that because they were my parents, my property was effectively their property. I opened my mouth to scream. I wanted to yell, "That's my land! You can't build there!" But then, a thought stopped me. A cold, calculating thought. If I stopped them now, all I would have is a half-dug hole in my ground and a family war. But if I let them finish, if I let them pour their savings into this house... I went home and called a lawyer. His name was Mr. Henderson, and he was expensive, but worth every penny. I explained the situation. He laughed. He actually laughed for a solid minute. "Let me get this straight," he said. "They are building a permanent structure on land titled in your name with no lease agreement, no permission, and no paper trail?" "Exactly," I said. "Do not say a word," Mr. Henderson advised. "Let them finish. Let them connect the utilities. Let them get the certificate of occupancy. In this state, once that structure is bolted to the foundation on your land, the leverage shifts entirely to you." So, I waited. It was the hardest year of my life. I watched updates on Facebook. Tiffany posting selfies in her new framing. My mom posting about picking out custom granite countertops. My dad complaining about the cost of lumber. They spent over $300,000 on this house. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a wraparound porch, a modern kitchen. Everything Tiffany wanted. Every time I visited, they would make snide comments. "See what we're doing for your sister? It's a shame you're so distant. Maybe we'd help you out too." Tiffany is going to have such a great start in life. It's important to support family. I bit my tongue until it bled. I smiled. I nodded. And I waited for the day the keys were handed over. Which brings us back to the mahogany table. The silence in the room was deafening after I dropped my folder. "What are you talking about?" My dad finally spat out, his face turning red. "Tenant? That house belongs to us. We paid for every nail in it." "You did," I agreed calmly. "You paid for the house, but you built it on a 124 Lakeview Drive." I opened the folder and slid a copy of the deed across the table, right on top of Tiffany's keys. "My land," I said. My mom snatched the paper. This is the old will. This doesn't matter. We're your parents." "And that is a legal document filed with the county," I replied. "You built a permanent structure on my property without my permission. Under state law, that structure is now considered an improvement to my land." "I'll sue you," my dad roared, standing up. I'll take you to court for every dime." "You can try," I said, keeping my voice low. "I spoke to my lawyer this morning. Since there was no contract, no ground lease, and I hold the deed, you have 2 options." Tiffany had stopped smiling. She looked back and forth between us, clutching the keys so hard her knuckles were white. "Option 1, I continued. "You remove the house. You pay to demolish it and return the land to its original state, which will cost you thousands more." My mom gasped. "Option 2, I said, turning to look directly at Tiffany. "You sign a ground lease." "A lease?" Tiffany squeaked. "Yes, rent," I said. "Market rate for the land usage. And since it's lakefront property with private access, I'm setting the rent at $2,000 a month." "You can't do that!" Tiffany screamed. "It's my house! Mommy, tell her it's my house!" "It's unfair," my mom yelled. "How can you do this to your own sister? You're trying to profit off us." "Profit?" I laughed. It was a dark, hollow sound. "You spent a year building a palace for the golden child on land you tried to steal from me. You assumed I was too weak or too stupid to notice. You assumed I would just roll over." I stood up. "I'm not rolling over anymore. You have till the 1st of the month to sign the lease or vacate the property. If you're not out, I file for eviction." I walked out of the house with their screaming echoing behind me. The fallout was exactly what you'd expect. My phone blew up. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years were calling me, telling me I was ungrateful, cruel, and a terrible daughter. "How can you charge your sister rent? Your parents spent their retirement money on that house. You're ruining the family." I blocked them all. My dad did try to sue. He spent another $5,000 on a retainer for a lawyer who basically told him the same thing mine did. You cannot build on someone else's land and expect to own it without a contract. It's been 3 months. Tiffany did not sign the lease. She refused to pay rent for a house she believed was hers. So, my parents are currently paying the $2,000 a month for her. Because they can't bear to see her homeless, and they can't afford to tear the house down. So essentially, my parents built me a $300,000 rental property, and they are also my tenants. I'm using the money to pay off my own mortgage. Tiffany still sends me hateful texts from her beautiful porch, telling me that karma will get me. But honestly, I think karma already arrived, and she pays rent on the 1st of the month. It's funny how people think family means you have to accept disrespect forever. My grandfather knew exactly who they were. He gave me that land as a shield. I just turned it into a sword. I haven't been back to their house since that day, and I don't plan to. I have a feeling Thanksgiving is going to be pretty quiet this year. So, am I the jerk for charging my own sister rent on a house my parents paid for? Or did they get exactly what they deserved for trying to steal my land? Let me know in the comments below.